Chapter 13, Excerpted and Adapted, of Lyddie, by Katherine Paterson. Speed up. Lyddie now avoided her friend, Diana. She knew Mr. Marsden was always watching the girls, who met at Diana's loom to talk about the petition. When a weekly newspaper about the struggle for labor reform began to show up in the boarding house, Lyddie refused to look at it. "Oh, Lyddie," Betsy said, "don't be afraid to read something you might not agree with." Lyddie didn't know how to explain to Betsy and Diana that she must not put her job in danger. She couldn't afford to protest or petition for laws demanding better working conditions. "If only I mind my own business," she thought, "I can keep this job for another year or two, pay off the farm debts, and go back home to reunite my family." Lyddie sent a letter to Mama. "Dear Mother, I was made quite sad by your letter telling of Agnes's death. I am concerned that you are not taking proper care of your health. I have enclosed $1. Please get yourself and little Rachel good food and, if possible, a warm shawl for the winter. I will send more next payday. I try to save for the debt, but you must tell me how much it is exactly. And do I send it to Mr. Westcott or to the bank? I am well. I work hard. Your loving daughter, Lydia Worthen." Lyddie began to write a second letter for Charlie, wanting to show him how much she had learned. But when she spilled a blob of ink on the page, she felt ashamed and crumpled up the paper. At work, Lyddie ignored everyone and focused on the 4 looms that Mr. Marsden had assigned her. No matter how fast they were sped up, she focused all her energy on keeping pace with them. "Think of them as bears," she would tell herself. "Large, clumsy bears. You can face down bears." When Mr. Marsden walked through the room, he often startled Lyddie by patting his puffy white hand on her arm approvingly. Lyddie wished he would leave her alone. At mealtimes, Lyddie paid no attention to the conversation, the decreased amount of food, or the unpleasant taste of moldy potatoes and meat that had gone bad. She was too tired at night now to copy out a page of Oliver Twist to study the next day. After supper, she would stumble upstairs, wash, and fall into bed. "This work is like being a racehorse," Betsy said one day. "The harder we work, the bigger the prize our owners get." Betsy was right. The overseers were paid prizes if the girls in their factory room produced the most products in a pay period. This explained why they had sped up the machines, and why the girls worked even when they were ill. "If you can't do the work," Lyddie heard Mr. Marsden say to a girl at breakfast break one morning, "there's many a girl who can and will. We have no place for sickly girls in this room." The girls who could afford to go home or marry left the factory and were replaced by new ones. The new girls spoke strangely, and their clothes were even stranger. They were Irish Catholics, poor immigrants from Ireland. They lived in crowded shacks in a neighborhood of Lowell called the Acre. Rumor said that these papists bred like rats and were willing to work for lower wages. Since they also did not live in factory boarding houses, they were significantly cheaper to hire than New England girls like Lyddie. Diana was teaching the new girls just as she had taught Lyddie last spring. Lyddie herself was far too busy to want to help anyone else. She could not fall behind in her production, or else her pay would drop, and before she knew it, one of these cussed papists would take her job. It was December, and Lyddie walked to and from work under a dark sky. One of the little Irish girls in the spinning room caught her hair in the machinery and was badly hurt. Diana took up a collection for the girl's hospital fees, but Lyddie did not contribute. Why should she when she had her poor sister Rachel to think of? She hadn't seen her mother or Rachel now for 2 years. She received no gifts for Christmas or New Year's, but she did get a note from Tryphena, thanking her for paying back the money Tryphena had loaned to her. Late on a Friday, the hardest day of the week, the accident happened. Lyddie had just replaced the shuttle and restarted her loom when she was knocked on the floor with blood pouring from the side of her head. Diana rushed over, turning off her own looms and Lyddie's before kneeling down and pressing a handkerchief to Lyddie's bleeding head. Girls had begun to gather. "She's been hit by the shuttle!" Diana shouted. "Get me some cold water, Delia." She began to tear her apron into pieces. "Your apron, don't," Lyddie said weakly. "Aprons cost money." Diana ignored her and dipped her apron strips in water to clean Lyddie's wound. "What's this here?" Mr. Marsden said sternly, but when he saw the blood, his face turned ashen. "Get her out of here," he said, and turned away. Diana wrapped Lyddie's head and helped her to stand. "Lean on me," she said. "I'll take you home and get a doctor." "The bell ain't rung," Lyddie whispered, "and doctors cost money." "Oh, Lyddie, Lyddie," Diana said, "whatever shall we do with you?" Back at the boarding house, Diana told Mrs. Bedloe's son to fetch Dr. Craven on Fletcher Street. When Lyddie saw Dr. Craven's young, bearded face bent over her, she gasped, but not from pain. This was the same handsome gentleman that she had seen walking with Diana on Merrimack Street last summer.